With WesternUnion.com's 4-star rated mobile app, send money fast virtually anywhere for just about anything. Download the free Western Union mobile app today from iTunes or the Play Store, or visit WesternUnion.com to learn more.
Can you feel it?
Durant for three, bingo! Right down the chute, Kevin Durant.
NBA Lockdown with Bruce Bowen.
Gets it to James. Here's a three for the win. Goal! It is good!
The NBA Lockdown Podcast with Bruce Bowen. Along with three-time NBA champion Bruce Bowen, here's ESPN.com NBA columnist Israel Gutierrez.
Welcome into another edition of the NBA Lockdown Podcast with Bruce Bowen. I'm Israel Gutierrez. If I sound a little funny, it's because I'm in Brooklyn. But we had some great games last night to continue this amazing first round of the NBA playoffs.
I just thought they played with more energy. You know, they were attacking relentlessly and just caught us in a lot of scrambles. You know, I just thought we wasn't dialed in. You know, we wasn't locked in. That was Paul George discussing his team's 98-85 loss to the Hawks, which puts the Hawks up in the series now 2-1. We thought we fixed this, Bruce. We thought we fixed the Pacers. They're not fixed. What in the world did you see yesterday?
I saw a bunch of kids, Izzy, without any direction. And it starts with, you know, Paul George and his foul trouble early. And you just can't go into an environment like Atlanta where you have issues playing and be passive. You have to be aggressive. And I saw passive in George Hill's play and even, oh my goodness, Roy Hibbert. It's almost as if he's trying to become a player that he's never been, as far as, hey, give me the ball. I want to do it on my own. That's not the way they play. And when you have thank goodness for Luis Scola and Lance Stevenson for his ability to attack the basket and create shots for Luis as well as others. They need to get back to that style of play. At one point, Izzy, George Hill and Paul George passed the ball to one another like hotcake. And then George dropped the ball, and it led to a fast break opportunity where they scored. It's those little types of things, Izzy, that really stands out for me, because it really shows you that this team is in a lot more trouble as far as the mental aspect than anything else. They're not even able to focus on what they do.
No, and, you know, George Hill I think he's become one of the biggest mysteries, right up there with Roy Hibbert, because of, like you mentioned, his passive play. That's just a thing with him. And, you know, the Pacers recognize it. Even Vogel's talked about it, you know, trying to encourage him not to pass up shots or to try to maybe get in the lane a little bit more. But 1 of 11 in 36 minutes, I mean, that's just awful. And, yeah, I mean, we're talking about what this team has to fix in the middle. That's not the only spot that's a problem. But let's get to Roy Hibbert here, because I want you to listen to this exchange after the game with Frank Vogel and our own Mark Schwartz.
Frank, with Roy playing the way he is in this series, why is he still the best guy to start in the middle?
We're not going to quit on him. I know that. We'll keep working with him. We'll keep trying to figure it out. He's our anchor. We won 56 games with him as our starter. And that's the simplest answer.
Do you plan to continue to do that?
We'll see. Probably.
I'll say this much about that, Bruce. Like, I get the idea that, you know, if you start to make drastic changes now, it looks like a panic move, and nobody's really going to fall in line with that, because, you know, they're just going to panic when things go wrong. However, his reasoning, you know, we won 56 games with Roy Hibbert. You didn't win 56 games with this Roy Hibbert. You didn't win 56 games playing 82 against the Atlanta Hawks, which essentially take Roy Hibbert out of the equation. So I get the idea of not starting him as a question, but I also get the defense by Frank Vogel. Where do you stand in this? Because it's got to be one of the more troubling choices to make. I mean, he did only play 19 minutes yesterday, so it's not like he played actual starters minutes, so maybe that's not the problem, but should they not even play him at all?
You don't want to do that to a player, Izzy, especially, I mean, these are like Frank's kids. And if you do something like that, what message are you sending him? Now he really goes into the tank. And yes, that tank might not be too deep as far as how far you can go, but what I'm more concerned with is their style of play. they are not playing to the whole ordeal of, we're going to stick to what we do. They haven't played their style of basketball just yet. They've changed their style of play to try and emulate or go against what Atlanta's doing. You can't do that when it comes to the playoff. You make them make the adjustment. You don't adjust to what they're doing because you're the more talented team, Izzy. And for you to do something like that, I think that's the biggest slap in the face that a player can face is when a coach feels like he can't win with you anymore.
They look like they've never played basketball together before, and I don't understand how that happens. I really don't. But let's give the Hawks some credit here. I mean, among the things that they do well besides pulling Roy out of the paint and making him ineffective is just finding a way, to get through that defense in particular or at all. And, in transition offense, they did really well. They outscored the Pacers 20-11 yesterday. And, Jeff Teague, listen, I don't care who you're playing. When a guy like Jeff Teague hits a shot like he hit on Luis Scola yesterday, you're going to probably slump a little bit and say this is not going to be our night because he wasn't great. 7 for 20 shooting wasn't great, but, when it mattered, he made big shots and made big plays. And I think we're seeing a guy that's gaining confidence seemingly every possession, if not every game. And the Hawks have something going here. And I do think that the Pacers are the bigger story, but I don't think that it's all just the Pacers failing that's making this series what it is.
No, I agree with you, and that is definitely not the case. It's not just the Pacers failing. It's what the Atlanta Hawks have brought to the table, too, going against a team where you've lost for the season, basically. They haven't had their go-to guy, their all-star in Al Horford. You've been able to do this with an array of different talent, and that's the thing that's so special about the game of basketball for me, Izzy, is that you might have a situation where you're not playing with your best player and guys come together in that moment and they continue to move forward. And I think if there's anything that can take place in the game of basketball, those are the wonderful things that are happening.
Well, let me ask you, what do you think happens from here? Because, we know the Pacers have struggled not just against Atlanta but in Atlanta. And if Atlanta goes up 3-1, this series is over. It's a, 97% chance, 98% chance. It's in the high 90s. Let's put it that way. What do the Pacers do in Game 4 to try to figure this out?
They have to be patient, Izzy. They cannot try and get it all back in a couple of possessions. And what I mean by that is the fact that you have to accept that you are down 2-1 now. And that's the reality. That's what's going on. But you cannot try to erase all the things that have transpired up until this point. You have to go about it as if it's a new series. And playing this new series, you have to play it to the best of your ability, to the way that you're accustomed to playing the game. And that's getting better sets, in the half court. You have to be patient. And in that patience, you're able to accomplish those things when you are able to I'm going to reiterate the patience aspect of things, but it's about getting back to being patient for the Pacers and really focusing on establishing your inside presence. And I'm talking about David West now. Work the ball, get him in certain situations where you can utilize his talent, to be able to draw double teams, because what's going on is that no one has to do anything as far as rotations and things of that nature for Atlanta because they're just coming down going one-on-one. You cannot play one-on-one basketball in the playoffs and expect to be successful. You have to utilize the confines of your offense. Swing the ball from one side of the floor to the other. Get player movement, body movement, attack the gaps, create shots for others. I say this because I know it to be true, but at the same time, you have to have that patience to do it. You can't settle for that first shot within the early part of your offense.
Yeah, I think the answer is pretty easy. You saw him already, meaning Frank Vogel, scale back the minutes for Roy Hibbert. He played 19. Scale back the minutes for Evan Turner. He played 8. And I think you probably scale back the minutes of George Hill, too. When you're having an issue where you just don't look like you know how to play basketball together and you need some more continuity and chemistry, well, you shorten the rotation and stick to more minutes for the guys that are producing for you and have them play together more. And that means, C.J. Watson, Jan Mahimi, Luis Scola, Paul George, Lance Stevenson, that group, and, throw in David West in there. That's basically a 6-man rotation they're going to have to go with. And, get a couple minutes here or there from George Hill and from Roy Hibbert, and maybe even from Evan Turner, if not sit him altogether, because he's been a big part of the problem too. So I think this is going to be a little bit of a tricky situation, but this is where I think Frank Vogel really needs to come up big and make a decision for his team that he thinks is going to work out. And if it works and they win Game 4, then he's going to look great. He's not going to worry about his job situation, and his players are going to recognize and say, hey, maybe this guy does know what he's talking about, and we should follow his lead. But right now we move on to another series that's where the favorite is in trouble, and that's Grizzlies Thunder.
We're a confident group. We go out there and we play for one another. And Oklahoma City is a great team. You don't take anything away from them. They have a lot of great players on their side, but we're just worried about what we do. Go out there and play our game. Worry about executing. Worry about sticking to the plan, the schemes, and try to do our best to win the games.
That was Mike Conley of Memphis after his team won 98-95 in overtime over the Thunder to take a 2-1 series lead. And that series, which again featured another crazy 4-point play from the Thunder that got them into overtime, but the Thunder couldn't hang on in overtime after taking the lead. Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook were both kind of off in this game. They looked out of sorts. You talked about the Pacers, about patience and finding good shots. Those guys they weren't doing that in Game 3. Weren't doing that for themselves. They weren't necessarily setting up anybody particularly well. Was this a matter of a couple of stars just trying to do too much, or is there something deeper going on here with the Thunder?
I think part of it is the fact that they're trying to do too much, Izzy, and they're fatigued. The physical play, it really takes its toll against you when you constantly go to the basket, you get knocked down. Whenever Russell Westbrook attacks a basket, he has to contend with 3 guys possibly trying to converge on him. And in those moments, that's where you have to utilize your teammates. You have to get the ball to Taiwo Cephalosha. You need to get it to Serge Ibaka, because you're going to have an opportunity to get your own shot at almost any time of the game. Kevin Durant, he's trying to post up. They're running him off screens, which is all fine and dandy, but you want to make sure that you're conserving his strength. I watched a lot of his shots last night, rim in and out, Izzy, and there's 2 factors to that. One of them is, okay, he needs more arch, and his shot is a little flat. Now, the way he shoots, it's effortless. There's very rare that you say that he's shooting flat shots. And the second is when you're fatigued and you're not getting your legs into your shot. We know that Russell Westbrook gets a lot of height when he shoots the ball. He's a jump shooter. Now, after all the banging, after all the defending and the rotations and trying to fight for position, they're wearing down. And Memphis is a team that's built on physical, aggressive play. They make sure that you don't just run to the spots on the floor that you like to be in. They make sure that they hit you a little bit. You got to fight for position. And I think that's what's going on with them more than anything else. They need to distribute the ball and get better play out of their role players in order to continue on the process of trying to get a victory in the grindhouse in Memphis.
Yeah, fatigue would help explain why Durant was 1 for 13 from 10 feet and beyond on Thursday, the second worst in his career shooting from 10 feet and beyond. The last time 0 for 15 back in 2009 against the Trailblazers. You mentioned getting the teammates involved. Between Durant and Westbrook, that's 5 assists. 5 assists between those 2 guys. Meanwhile, they shot 53 times. So that's a bad combination. Here's Durant discussing the idea that those guys need to play better offense.
We do have to do a better job of, getting guys easier shots. Falls on us too. Everything falls on us too. So we have to be better. We own up to it. We got to get guys involved. We got to get Karan involved, Reggie, Nick, Serge, everybody, Tabo. We'll take that on our shoulders and, figure it out and get better next game.
They have to take that on their shoulders, don't they? There's a total of 13 assists for the Thunder in this game with 34 field goals. That's not good basketball, especially when you're shooting 39% for the game. It has to be on them because they're the ones doing all the handling, basically. So how do they get those guys involved, or is it more of a mental battle where it's just the Grizzlies are kind of grinding you down and being physical, so you want to respond on your own, rather than just run the offense. I mean, is that just sort of a mental battle players have to play throughout a game or a series?
Yeah, especially when you're talking about the leaders of your group, the leaders of your team. And this year, Kevin Durant has been huge. But now it's even more important for this ball club to really take a look at the film session and say, hey, where can I benefit helping someone else in this particular manner? You know, it's not about just me getting each and every shot or about Russell Westbrook doing it. We have to do a better job of getting shots for others, and that means when we attack the basket, everyone knows that we're going to shoot. If you kick it out, that will be the surprise to the Memphis Grizzlies, because they're accustomed to seeing these guys attack and do it for themselves, because that's just their mentality. It's nothing personal, but when it comes to crunch time and when it comes to certain moments in games, players of that caliber, the all-star caliber, leaders of your team, they feel like that's their time. They can have that time, but it's just about setting up better opportunities to have those moments. And when the ball is moving, now you're forcing Memphis to play more defense, and in the process of playing more defense, they're starting to get a little winded. They're starting to become the ones that are fatigued. Because when you just come down and attack off of one pass or two passes, that lets the defense off the hook. They're not exerting any energy.
Right. No, that's a great point. Okay. Well, let's give the Grizzlies some love here. Despite Zach Randolph's 5 for 20 shooting performance, the Grizzlies scored 62 points in the paint. That's the second most the Thunder have given up this season. The most was 66 to the Timberwolves on January 4th. And you saw they kind of went small for a stretch and didn't have any rim protection, and the Grizzlies went straight to the rim. I mean, that's either really high basketball IQ or good coaching or a combination. But, and you're still getting a phenomenal effort from Tony Allen. Like, it just seemed like the playoff came and Tony Allen said, hey, I can still play on the offensive end, and found his way. He was 8 for 15 with 16 points, 9 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 steals, and just tremendous defense against Durant and company all night long. And then you have Beno Udrih giving you another boost, 12 points in 14 minutes off the bench with only one missed field goal. So, there's the Grizzly love. But let me ask you big picture, because big picture, this is more about Kevin Durant possibly not advancing, right? Because we all had him winning the MVP. We all have would love to see him get another chance to win a championship and maybe sort of challenge LeBron as the best player in the league. How panicked should Oklahoma City be? And if they do end up losing this series, which is a ways to go, they do end up losing this series, how big of a deal is it to you that Durant's out in the first round?
Whenever it comes to the game of basketball and in the playoffs, you watch how the series go. This isn't necessarily like, NCAA where, it's, Dayton beating Duke or anything like that. These are two quality ball clubs. And you just recognize that it's not about individual play, but it's so much about the team play now. It's not about all the nights that Kevin can have scoring. There are so many things that Memphis have taken away from Kevin, where now he has to work so hard for each and every shot. Whenever we've seen Kevin during the regular season, it's been in a situation where he is dancing with the basketball, no defense, or if there's a pick and roll, teams don't know, should I hedge or should I trap him? But he's so long and crafty that he's able to get his shot. Now you take into account the fact that he's playing Memphis Grizzlies, who, by the way, they've only beaten them last year. They beat the Clippers 2 years ago, or almost 2 years in a row, I should say. They knocked the Spurs out when the Spurs were number one. So I think at some point you got to realize you're dealing with a very good veteran ball club in the Memphis Grizzlies, who are not concerned with the flash or how many points can we score. They are still about who they are, and that's that team that goes through Marc Gasol and Zach Randolph. And when it's not those two, because they've established that, then you get Conley making shots, or even Mike Miller knocking down shots, or Tony Allen slashing to the basket. They're just so precise with what they do. We haven't seen a consistent team like this against OKC, because they seem to have all the things that are necessary to limit the effectiveness of what Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant are able to do.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty unfair that you consider this a 2-7 matchup. Look how good Grizzlies are. They're one of the best 7 seeds I've ever seen. But still, if Durant goes out in this first round and the Oklahoma City Thunder are frustrated, I think you're going to see some shakeups. I don't know if it's personnel, I don't know if it's coaching, but they're going to have to address something because regardless of how good the Grizzlies are, the Thunder should be better. Speaking of should be better, the referees should have been better. We move on to the Clippers-Warriors.
We were not playing well. We turned the basketball over too much. We just got out of character. I thought we tried to do too much at times offensively instead of trusting our offense. We were just on edge a little bit. The point was we settled down, and that's when we began to make a run.
That was Mark Jackson after the Clippers beat his team 98-96 at Oracle Arena to take lead in that series 2-1. Yeah, that's all great. I believe everything he said. But they should have at least had a chance to win that game with Steph Curry on the line, Bruce. Tell me you agree that was a foul on Chris Paul.
Izzy, that was a foul. There's no way that Tony Allen gets that foul called on him, and there's even more contact with Chris Paul on his defense of Steph Curry. Now, Izzy, I got to say this. You know, Mark Jackson said that they are a defensive-minded team.
Mm-hmm. Blake
Griffin said otherwise. And, I mean, he went to work last night, Izzy. He established the play down low. I can't just let this go, but the 22 rebounds by DeAndre Jordan, that was spectacular as well. But what I saw more than anything else was a Clipper team where the role guys were doing what they were supposed to do. You didn't have DeAndre trying to do too much. Putbacks, block shots, rebound. J.J. Redick, we got you the ball, knock down threes. Same thing with Jamal Crawford. And Chris Paul, I love the way that he's being able to defer to Blake because he knows how important it is for Blake to get established. And that allows all the penetration and kicks and things like that, the drives for the Clippers. Now, on the flip side, Izzy, this was a terrible game by Golden State. They were down the whole time, and that's where, you know, you put so much pressure on your offense when you're not able to stop anyone. They weren't able to stop the Clippers. And then, you know, the late game heroics, they come up short because they can't stop them. Now, if you're concerned with making the necessary adjustments, number one is your shot selection. You got to be better with clock management in the playoffs. And I understand you take some quick shots, but I said this about 3 months ago, Izzy. That style of play is going to hurt them in the playoffs because they still haven't changed from it.
Absolutely, I agree with you. You know, I'll get back to Blake in a second, but yeah, that last thought you had there in terms of the Golden State Warriors sort of discipline on offense. You know, I take this, I kind of go back to Frank Vogel and deciding who he's going to play because I think Mark Jackson has a real question or should take a good look at who he's playing and when and what kind of freedoms he's giving them. Because, I mean, when you get Jordan Crawford out there, listen, before the game, if you're Jordan Crawford or if you're a Golden State Warriors fan, you could flip a coin and then basically it's a 50-50 shot to see if Jordan Crawford's going to have a good game or a bad game. Okay, it's probably less than 50-50, actually. It's probably more of a 60-40 chance in terms of bad to good. And the problem with that is if he's not going well, then it's going to be problematic. And so he goes out there, and he only plays 4 minutes and looked bad, and Mark Jackson made a decision there, a smart one, I would say, and didn't play him as much. I wonder a little bit about only playing Jermaine 16 minutes, and he hasn't been playing big minutes, because with Andrew Bogut out, you need at least a body in there. And I know he's not as mobile as DeAndre Jordan or Blake Griffin, but I feel like he probably could, you know, at least take up some space in the paint, make it a little bit more difficult for him. But no, in terms of the offense, I'm with you. It's like it's annoying when you watch that talent and then see the way they run plays and the way they get offense sometimes, and it's just like, what are you guys doing? Like, it's one thing to have freedom from a head coach. It's another thing to just turn that into, you know, poor plays and poor offense. So I agree with you there. I think the Blake Griffin thing, man, you know, going into that game, I said after game 2, he's going to have all the confidence in the world in this series because he doesn't think anybody on that floor can stop him. And so I thought that would translate to him going to the rim more, maybe getting a bunch of free throws. He just decided to put on a shooting display at one point to get a cushion for his Clippers, and that's the type of stuff that I don't care who you are, I don't care who's defending him. That's like, those are impossible shots to defend. They really are. So, you talk about Chris Paul deferring to Blake Griffin. Everybody in that situation, any smart basketball player should defer to Blake Griffin in that situation. And frankly, Chris Paul still had a hamstring issue he's dealing with. So, again, easy decision to defer to Blake. I don't know where the Warriors go in terms of an answer for Blake, because you saw at times they just tried to blatantly double-team him before he even caught the ball. And, the Clippers are too good for that. They have too much offense around him for that. And, they don't have Andrew Bogut that they can rely on. So this is going to be one of those situations where they just have to say, somebody's got to work against him one-on-one, and we kind of have to hope he misses.
Yeah, but that is definitely not what you want to be going into the playoffs with, or I should say in the midst of the playoffs. I think, when you come down, and it all goes back to the offense, Izzy. When you come down, you take a quick shot. Now you got the Clippers running back, and they're going to take their time, get Blake the ball. There was, I think, the beginning of the third quarter, beginning of the second half, they went straight to Blake. He gets, I believe, an and one. Then they come down again, give it to him. He goes off the glass. Then they come down again and give it to him. He goes off the glass again. He makes all these shots. Someone else took a shot, and Doc Rivers was like, no. You keep going. You keep going back to him because we're getting what we want. They're coming down, shooting a shot, and it's not going in, and we come back and give it to Blake, and they have no answer for him. Now, in a perfect world, what you do with Blake is you send a double team once he gets into a certain area of the floor. You send a double team hard. Don't let him out of it, and then you utilize your athleticism as far as getting to the shooters. If there's someone at the rim, and this is where the coaching comes into play, yes, you have to sit somebody in DeAndre Jordan's lap because he's a mismatch for someone, but you can scramble. The Warriors have scrambled in the past, but right now they're so worried on the offensive end that it's affecting their defense.
Yeah, here's what I say. You take Steph Curry and you see those 15 assists, they look really pretty. That's fine. I'll drop those to about 8 or 9 and be perfectly happy as long as I see the field goal attempts go from 12 to about 25.
Oh,
he needs to be the guy, and he needs to have that fourth quarter approach every single quarter that he's out there, because those are better shots. I don't care where he takes them from. They're better shots than what a lot of the stuff they're getting. And, when he gets into a rhythm, that throws the defense entirely off because all eyes are on him, and then things can open up. So I kind of want him to reverse his approach. Have that fourth quarter approach from the beginning, and if it's working all game long, great. Have a great scoring game. If the defense adjusts, then you start dropping dimes on people, because that just seems to be a better formula for this team. But we had some surprising results last night, and as I said on Twitter, I think the playoffs are drunk because things are going a little bit nuts. But we'll see if we have any more coming in store for Saturday. We'll talk about those games coming up in a minute.
Coming this summer, the 2014 FIFA World Cup from Brazil. Every goal.
The shot, Donovan scores! The USA leads by 2!
Every save.
Here's Germany up, steal, closer. In the box, the shot is stopped.
Every match. Wherever you are this summer, take the FIFA World Cup with you. It's on ESPN Radio and the ESPN Radio app.
They're such a potent team, and they have such great players, and they're so, they got the coach of the year, and and so it's a monumental task, but we're in this thing to win. We're not in it just to get a split and feel happy. We can't do that.
Is it just me, Bruce, or do you feel like he said the coach of the year on purpose, with a purpose in that quote there? That was the game, that was Rick Carlisle after game 2, the Mavericks coach, where they took home court advantage with a blowout of San Antonio. I still contend it's the most shocking result so far in these playoffs in the first round. What's happening here? Why are the Spurs turning into a team that looks like they've got a bunch of 19-year-olds with turning the ball over all the time? I mean, I don't understand. This is probably the most mind-boggling couple of games that I've seen so far.
Well, I don't think you would understand it, because it's one of those deals where it's hard to understand how a team
it makes no sense.
Yeah, exactly. It makes no sense, and this is why coaches go crazy or they go bald. So, yeah, I do think there was a little shot there. You know, you got the coach of the year, coach of the year. And I'll say this, Izzy, the game, it's all about how you respect whatever happens, how you respect your win. You look at what the Clippers did with their win in L.A. They came into Golden State and they get another win because they respect the magnitude of that win. Will the Spurs respect the magnitude of the loss? How can they benefit from that and go forward? I think they can benefit from that and go forward because now, okay, that streak is over with as far as you having the so-called dominance over the Dallas Mavericks. They're a different team. You have Monte Ellis on that team that is one of the quickest guards in the game with the ball. He's attacking the basket, so what happens? Defense has to collapse. He kicks the ball out. Next thing you know, you have someone shooting a wide-open shot, or it's Monte Ellis all the way to the basket. Izzy, they gave up 44 points in the paint last game, the Spurs did. They turned the ball over 24 times, and those are careless mistakes. When you have a team that's not in tune to what the other team is doing, this is what happens. You get smacked in the mouth. And so now you've had a chance to listen to what coaches are saying, develop a game plan, and now you must be better. Patty Mills, he has to be better. Marco Bellinelli, he has to be better. Danny Green, they have to be better. They have to be more efficient because without them being efficient, now Tim, Tony, and Manu aren't able to be as powerful as they could when the role players are doing what they're supposed to.
Here's Dirk Nowitzki talking about going back home and, oddly enough, not feeling too great about it.
I like our intensity right now. It's a little dangerous going home. We've been actually a decent road team all year, but at home we haven't figured it out yet. I think we lost some big games over the last couple months, and we just can't take the foot off the gas. We got to keep compete the same way, and then I like our chances going home.
This Dirk Nowitzki, he's pretty strange. I don't think I've ever heard anybody say that going home is a little dangerous. Maybe they thought it, but they don't actually say it. I don't buy that. I think going home, they're gonna get the boost they need. I don't think it matters really where they play right now. To me, it matters just how San Antonio plays. I mean, you mentioned the turnovers. They had 15 at halftime. That's more than they average a game during the season. This isn't like this is some athletic, Mavericks team with the wings and guards that are really making life miserable for Tony. I mean, heck, even Manu had a big game. It's just seemingly out of character stuff. Like, I'm not adjusted to being in playoff mode yet. Maybe it's a not having enough respect for the opponent. Although I don't think that's a Spurs thing either.
What?
So, to you, does it matter where they play, or do you think that this is just a simple matter of Popovich is going to fix this and it's inevitable?
Well, it has to get fixed, Izzy. It's reality, and I think that's what Dirk is talking about when he says he's a little cautious about being at home because of what happens? Complacency. You've seen how the Spurs have played. Spurs played the Dallas Mavericks in Dallas and smoked them right before season's end. And the first game, Dallas outworked San Antonio. It's just that they didn't get the buckets when they needed them, because if you would have watched that, if you saw that game and stopped watching before the last 5 minutes of the game, you would have said, oh, Dallas is going to win this game. And that's part of the comfort of being at home, Izzy. He's talking about the complacency and you feeling all good about yourself because you got a victory, but it becomes even more of a challenge to bring the intensity of when you're on the road, when there's no crowd to cheer you up. Sometimes guys take bad shots at home because they know that, you know what, if we get into too big of a bind, our crowd and our fans will lift us up and we will be better. So from that standpoint, I understand what he's saying. And then the caution of being at home again. They lost games at home towards the end of the playoffs where it almost happened where they didn't make the playoffs because of those losses. They had to go out on the road where they were they had the mental focus of those that's necessary in order to accomplish big goals. And they did that. They accomplished that. I think Dirk just wants to make sure that they continue with that process because he knows better than anyone else. This is the same organization that you played against in 2006 and you lost 2 games at home in the playoffs when you're up 3-1. So anything is possible when it comes to the Spurs and the Mavericks.
So we touched on this game. We touched on the Pacers, Hawks, and Oklahoma City, Memphis, which were the other 2 games Saturday. The last game Saturday is probably the least compelling. It is Bobcats Heat.
I think we have a chance, man. I know these guys are the defending champs, but I mean, it's not going to be easy. We're trying to win these games, and like I said, I think we got a chance.
That was Kemba Walker discussing his team's attempt to win these games against Miami. Miami's up 2-0 in the series, and I think probably the most compelling situation. I mean, we saw Josh McRoberts' foul on LeBron get upgraded to a flagrant 2 with a $20,000 fine. That seemed appropriate. And I think the biggest question mark is Al Jefferson. Like, he's got the torn plantar fascia. Basically the approach is just gut your way through it because you can't make that injury any worse. I'm of the opinion that with a big guy like that, he's not exactly light. I think when you start favoring your leg that way because you're dealing with pain, you could set yourself up for injury somewhere else. And I don't know the value of him of playing in this series, especially playing heavy minutes the way he played in Game 2, 40 minutes. I mean, what do you think about Al? Is it just a situation where his prize is going to be too much, or should they consider at least shutting him down?
No, don't shut him down because there's nothing worse that can take place within the injury. Whenever you have an injury quite like that, it's more about pain tolerance. And I hope that the adrenaline will take over more than anything else so that he can be that player that they need to give them something in the pain. But, we talked about this before, Izzy, about how Michael Kidd-Gilchrist would handle this situation of now having an opportunity to have a huge impact for the Bobcats. And we saw him do a good job. I mean, we're talking about a player that's, I believe, in his second or third year, and going up against LeBron James, the best player in the world, the player who's been to the finals the past 3 years. It's not an easy task, but I like the fact that they have to have confidence and feel good about their opportunities, because if you don't, shame on you. You shouldn't be playing.
Yeah, I think Kemba Walker at home is probably going to have a big impact and probably going to feel pretty free. But in the overall, I feel like Miami, if they don't take both of these, will definitely start out by taking Game 3. It's kind of what they do. They win first-round games usually, in the Big 3 era. They only swept Milwaukee. So their other 2 first-round games, the series rather, they went 4-1. Although I would say that I wouldn't be shocked if they sweep this one because given how important it is to have these guys rested, given how much basketball they've played, I'd say it's high on their priority list to get this over with. Just real quick, Bruce, when you consider three-peats in the past, at least in our recent memory, if LeBron and Miami go on to three-peat, given, that they don't have the size, they're not your prototypical team, how would you compare this one to others?
I think, of course, the only one that was in my time, there's 2 others. I think Michael Jordan's three-peat was truly special because you knew he was going to will them to whatever was necessary in order to win. Kind of the same thing with the Lakers, but they had dominant individuals like Shaq and Kobe. And I don't care what anyone says, Shaq during that time was so unguardable, Izzy. I know Michael Jordan wasn't guardable, but you could try to scheme your way into what he was doing. I think the Lakers were really special as far as having the type of player of a Shaquille O'Neal on your squad, and to have a younger Kobe and all his talent and wanting to be one of the greatest as well. So I just don't see that with the Miami Heat. I see too many holes. I mean, they get out-rebounded quite a bit, and you didn't see that against the Lakers or the Bulls for that matter. So
that, to me, Bruce, is what would make this even more impressive because of their shortcomings, if they were able to overcome with talent and good coaching and a different approach to offense and, frankly, a different approach to defense than what we've seen. But that's a while down the road. That's going to wrap it up for this edition of the NBA Lockdown Podcast. For Bruce Bowen, I'm Israel Gutierrez. Thanks for listening. We'll catch up with you again next week.
Thanks for listening to the NBA Lockdown. For more great podcasts, visit the Pod Center page at ESPNradio.com.
For his birthday, I want to send my godson to a playoff game. With the 4-star rated Western Union app, I can send him money conveniently from anywhere and make sure it gets there by tip-off. WesternUnion.com is making things so simple nowadays, and right now, they've got a special promotion going on. Download the free Western Union mobile app, and if you're a new customer, you can send money for 0 fee by using the promo code 2014-2014.
One discount per transfer, no cash value, void where prohibited. This offer expires May 18th. Western Union also makes money from currency exchange.